Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Guy Sports Podcast. And always, I'm joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, our next guest, I've been wanting to try to get Jason on for a long time, and it's just taken a little bit too long for me to reach out to Jason. But tell you what, he's one of those guys that's one of probably the best athletes that's ever walked through Anderson High School, and one of those guys that really started that run of the great running backs at Anderson, and a state swimmer on top of that, state champion. Unbelievable athlete Jason was.
No question, Danny. I mean, I'm honored just to talk to him. It's been a long time since we've seen him, so this is great to catch up. But when we talk about some of the podcasts we do, and we're going to have a podcast when we go through like the top 10 athletes to ever go through Anderson. This guy is going to be in the top 5, probably. 2-time All-State in 2 different sports. Yeah. I mean, I've said it before, not many guys can say that. And I'm not surprised by the stats that I'm looking at here, and I can't wait to share them.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. So as we said, as joining us here is Jason Druso. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Oh no, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's so let's go down memory lane a little bit and go back to the days of growing up and where you lived and what side. I think you lived on my good side, the Summit side, I believe, but just let everybody know.
Oh yeah.
What side you lived on?
Yeah, we moved to Cincinnati from Cleveland, Ohio, in I think it was 1980. And then we moved into Summit, and that's the house we were in up until I graduated high school. We lived on Wood Glen, lived on the same street as Jeff Hast and Brad Ackle.
Yep.
So you can imagine at the time, I think there was only 8 houses on the whole street. So you can imagine what that street was like. So, great memories. We're having similar memories up here that we're creating in Valparaiso, Indiana, but what a great community for my parents to move into, and so lucky to have been there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously, like I said, the Summit was the best side, Steve. I don't care what you say, that was the better side.
Well, it's incredible because, I mean, all these guys and girls we've talked to that, grew up in Summit, there's always, 10, 15, 20 other kids about the same age running around. I mean, like what would you guys do like during the day when you were growing up, Jason?
Video games. We were playing kickball, throwing the football on the concrete street.
Yep.
We were running through the woods. I mean, at Summit, the grade school, Jason Bell went there. Brad Keatley, who left us and was a middle linebacker at University of Connecticut, was their team captain. Dave Bailey was a great athlete. Matt Weiss, who ended up moving, went to that school. Myself, Jeff Hast, Brad Ackle. So that's all in one class. So
right.
Pretty incredible for such a small school.
Yeah. So as you were growing up, Jason, what was some of the sports that you played? Because we know you obviously between football and swimming. And how did you get into those sports?
Swimming, we joined a Summit Swim Club.
Yes.
And I was taking swim lessons. My mom was a swimmer. She swam for a team out of Cleveland called Lakewood Silver Dolphins, which was similar to like the Pepsi Marlins or Barracudas. Yeah. They were never gonna, I don't think, push me that direction. But I was taking swim lessons. They were like, "Hey, this kid should join the swim team." And I was like, I don't know. Okay. I was like the kid, I'll try it. So I showed up for a swim meet. I'd been to like a couple practices and swam 8U and raced against a kid that was swimming for the Barracudas and beat him.
Nice.
So the rest was kind of history. Started swimming with the Barracudas when I was 9 years old, and continued that path. I almost quit. I was playing basketball too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
So I almost quit. In the 7th grade, I decided to just play basketball and not swim. And if it weren't for Tim Morrison, who was the high school swim coach at the time, he actually the school let me get out of study hall. He took the time out of his day to train me in the pool while I was playing basketball. So I played basketball in the afternoon and swam during that study hall. If it weren't for that, I probably never would have gone back. So I owe that to him.
So this is, as we've talked about, Danny, this is when seventh grade was in the high school, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Incredible.
Yep.
So, and you played football, and then you mentioned basketball.
Yeah. I started off playing baseball and soccer were the first two sports I played. I played soccer till I was 11 years old. That's when I started playing football. Baseball, I was in love with it from the beginning and played that from T-ball all the way on up. So the big step was probably, I think I heard Nate or Joe talking about the Mount Washington Pee Wee team, and I went over there when it was Matt Weiss, Brad Keeley, and I all played on the same soccer team. And I think it was Matt that decided that we were all going to play football, and so that we all kind of followed suit, and it was obviously well worth all of our time. It turned out to be great for all of us. But the first year I was just learning the game, and really it wasn't until high school that my kind of football career took off. Baseball and swimming were probably my 1 and 2 sports.
Yeah. So Danny, I don't know if you know this. I coached Jason when he was in 7th grade. I was the assistant coach, and I spent all day today, Jason, looking for this picture. And because I think I'm wearing like a sock tie or something, but I mean, there's some great stars on that team, as you were mentioning some of them, and there's Aaron Zabo and Jason Bell, and I mean, just some great athletes, and Jason was a really, really good basketball player, and if he would have stuck with it, he would have probably would have been all-state in that sport as well, but went on to have a great career with swimming.
Yeah, I think I knew I wasn't going to grow much more. So I was a tall kid in the 7th grade. I was a center. I was a center on that basketball team, like 5'9" in the 7th grade.
That's funny. So, and you said you mentioned you played baseball too.
Yep. Yeah, I played baseball. Played on the youth Midland team, and then travel teams as I got older. A few different teams, and then went on to high school, and So
well, along with your class, Jason, a lot of those guys, and no different than yourself, all the success you had, you're playing 3 sports, which, as you're finding out with kids, it's becoming tougher to play 2 sports, let alone 3, and excel at it like you did. Let's talk about your baseball career and playing at Anderson, and how that got started, who you played for.
Okay. Yeah. My freshman year, I played reserve my freshman year.
Okay.
I played shortstop that year and was a pretty good hitter. I was fortunate enough to get the MVP that year, so that was cool.
That's awesome.
And I think it was in a scrimmage where we played the varsity team, and I'm going from memory. My memory's not that good. This is what I remember. I feel like I had a really good game against the varsity team and hit a home run in that game, and I think opened up a few eyes, and then they gave me the opportunity as a sophomore to start at shortstop, which I don't think happens that often. And,
wow.
And I hit 3rd on the team. I think I hit around 400, and that was my sophomore year. So that was Dave Bailey and I were the only sophomores on the team, and
Dave Bailey.
Got
Who
to
was
be
the coach?
mentored. That was Heimball.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that team was a good team, actually. That sophomore team, we had like Brian Bailey was on that team.
Yep.
We had a number of good players. Williams was the catcher. Barry played first base. Chris Young was in the outfield. So that was a hell of a team.
Yeah.
I remember. I think we made it pretty far in the playoffs. I think at one point in time we went head to head with Moeller one time. So
really,
it was good. Yeah.
That's great. That's an awesome story. So let's get into the football part of it. And obviously, you played arguably one of the best teams in Anderson high school history. Talk a little bit about that experience, but also the experience of everybody that's talked about Coach Soriano, what Coach Soriano meant to you in your football career.
Oh, I mean, I'm very fortunate to have had, 2 great coaches at Anderson, which maybe we'll talk about the other one later. But, in football, I mean, Vince was such an inspiration. I can say like playing at Miami, and I played for some great coaches at Miami. you had Randy Walker, Terry Hepner, Sean Payton was one of the coaches.
Wow.
And the way he conducted himself was no different than any of those guys. He could inspire. He was a man of strategy. He could develop young people, and he just didn't pay attention to just the stars on the team. I think he cared for everybody, and really built a culture that just people wanted to follow. When you look at like the highlight film that my dad caught, where his big speech that I think's in, and I saw what you're working on, and just to listen to that, it gives you the chills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still close to him today, and I hope that my kids get to experience some of the coaches that I got to be involved with, because most of my success, if not all of it, comes and is associated with the people that mentored me in life.
Yeah, that's a great story. And Jason, just we do this. We're doing a live remote at the lounge. If you remember the lounge on Beachmont Avenue, we do a live remote there this year, and we got Vince to show up on Tuesday nights, and literally he is as fired up doing those shows as he is when he probably was coaching you. I mean, he gets the crowd. I mean, he's like he'll pace. He's doing that speech. He's pacing. He's like, it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think we ever entered a game flat. And we had a pretty intense team, but I think he drove a lot of it.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Steve.
I just wanted to read some of Jason's accomplishments, because I don't know a lot of people, they haven't had the Hall of Fame up, in a few years since the renovation and stuff like that. So, I want to take a second and read some of this, because this is incredible.
It really is.
What Jason accomplished, and I got to put my glasses on. Sorry. So, we talked about when we interviewed your brother Timmy about being captain. Well, this guy was captain of every sport, and everything he ever did.
Right.
But captain of the football team, first team All-State. He was the Associated Press for Ohio Co-Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, in the history of Anderson football, how many times that happened?
Yeah, I don't know if it ever has since then.
No, the Ohio Super 32 team played in the North-South game, the East-West game, started in 5 positions, never came off the field, and a huge honor is that he got his jersey retired, which is just very rare for the history of Anderson football. And you want to go through, and we're going to talk about swimming in a moment, but we talk about being a top 10 athlete and some of the stuff that I read right there. But the other thing, Danny, is that in 1993, he was a Buddy LaRosa Athlete of the Year.
Yep.
I mean, to me, it's one thing it's Anderson. Now you're talking Greater Cincinnati Athlete of the Year. And I can assure you that no one in Anderson's ever done that.
Yeah, it's just incredible stuff that and that's why we kind of do this stuff, just to bring everybody back to see what it was. You and I got to experience it live and watching it firsthand, and it just Jason always has a special. That whole team holds a special place in Anderson High School history. I mean, there's no question about it. And so, Jason, real quick, St. X game, you got a first down. I know you did, didn't you?
Hey, it's funny, I went to a friend's house a couple years ago, and Scott Solman was there, and he could have been more of, he could have been, more of a, gentleman. I don't know what the right word is for the conversation, but the way he had the respect for Anderson after that game, and the fact that not just me, there's a lot of players on that team that played both ways, and he just could not believe it, because X didn't do that. So that's it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, like I said, I'm working on this highlight, the history of Anderson High School football, and I've got that tape, and I've played it back I don't know how many times, and I'm telling you, it's a horrible spot.
It is a horrible spot. It is what it is.
Yeah, Danny, explain the situation. Explain that, Danny.
What the video?
Explain that play. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, so in the 1992-93 season for Anderson High School, first year ever making a playoffs, play Princeton, beat Princeton, and they go play St. X at what they have 12,000 fans there or something like that. And Anderson's down 14-7. We're driving, and it was 4th and 2, 4th and 3, and Jason got a first down. And the spot, I mean, even the guys that were on the broadcast for Spectrum said they thought he got it, and one guy said he didn't. And I mean, you just watch it, slow motion, fast motion. I thought you had it, So
yeah, we were gaining momentum. We were breaking them down because I just broke a long one for I think like 30 or 40 yards. I did get caught from behind, but I think that kid played at Notre Dame. But but that led us to that play a little bit later, and I mean, it was a hard fought game. Both that Princeton and that at St. X game were pretty incredible games.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We didn't leave anything on the field. I know that.
Yeah.
Well, it was just so fun to watch it. And, the trend that you guys set, and we've talked to the Kenny Rods or Daniel Rods and some of those, shoemakers, they looked up to you guys so much, and watching, you guys start the trend because, I mean, am I right? Danny completely turned everything around.
There's no doubt about it. And I, Jason, to be fair though, the class before you two with Lou Andriadis, those guys kind of started it. You guys kept it going, and you guys just continued the dominance. But
yeah,
I mean,
these things don't happen overnight. So there's a lot of people before us that built this up and paved the way. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Vince Soriano, buddy.
Yeah. We were, one thing is like going through some of my accomplishments, but everybody needs to remember like all those people that were on that team that we had I think my senior that team between the senior and junior class probably had 8 kids that played D1 football. Yeah. So, I had Jamie Mons, I had Jeff Hast, I had Jeremy Streck, Joe Dunn. I didn't have them. We had each other.
Right.
Chris Haywood played at Kent. Jamie Mons, obviously, at Air Force. Nate was at Miami with me.
Right.
I mean, list goes on and on. There's other people, Fred Woods. I mean, you watch his highlight videos, he was incredible in it.
Yeah. And you said there's a couple, 1 or 2 guys that unfortunately they moved away that went on to play football.
Oh, yeah. Keatley, if he would have stayed there, he didn't move. I think he moved. I think it was after the 8th grade. So he was there for a pretty long time, and he ended up being a hell of a middle linebacker for University of Connecticut. So.
How about that?
Hey, yeah, Jason, it's funny. It was we were at a Bearcat tailgate, and there was a couple guys on the state championship team. We're tailgating, and we got into like a little, they were saying, they were the best. And I said, nope, 92 team was the best team. And they were like, we want a state championship. I'm like, I don't care. So there was that big argument. And I'm trying to tell them, I was like, I'm not disrespecting you guys. State championship is unbelievable winning for Anderson High School, but I've seen both of them, both you guys. And I mean, they're 2 of the best teams in Anderson High School history, no doubt about it. But just what you guys, that's just my opinion. But it was funny to hear the argument, the old guys and the young guys just kind of going
at it. Yeah, it's all good.
Yes.
It's glad we all contributed to I think what Anderson still continues to do. So.
Absolutely.
Well, Jason, what about the 4th down play against Princeton in the snow? And Vince called timeout. What can you recall about that?
I recall, I don't recall exactly. I'm not as good as everybody else with some of these details. But
Nate was all over it.
From what I remember, there were some comments, and I think Jason Bell was involved. I don't know who else, but it was like, hey, we're running the ball, we're going for it, and then they gave it to me and ran it over, Jamie Mons and Nate Gosman and Jeff Hast and our incredible offensive line. I mean, the holes were big usually.
Yes, they were.
Well, it was really cold that night, but it was so awesome. I mean,
watching that 1 yard run and then watch everybody run onto the field, still to this day is pretty incredible. My parents, obviously, I don't know if you know that my dad filmed a lot of those games and did the highlight.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
And I think like 2 years ago for my birthday, my mom converted all my college games and anything that they ever filmed, videos, highlight videos, they converted them all to DVD, which
Awesome.
You would think that at this day and age, you'd put them on electronically, but
Yeah.
oh well.
Well,
But,
that's awesome
but
though.
watching that is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to mention your dad a little bit later, but since you brought him up, I mean, from what I can remember, it was like the first time that you had like a legitimate photographer, that film guy that was there. I mean, did he go to practices too?
Yeah, occasionally he would go to different things to try and get, different moments. I mean, he's been filming these things. He used to do it with Matt White. Used to be, they called it Tom Al production. It used to be my dad and Tom Weiss, which Matt Weiss, the guy I talked about. They did soccer. And they started doing our football highlight videos. So I got all the highlight videos from 10, 11, 12.
How cool is that?
They did all those. And then my dad, when we were doing the Pee Wee football, worked with Nate's mom, Debbie. And so she had a big part in all those highlight videos as well. He still talks about it to today, that she was doing a lot of the creative stuff. And then he was doing a lot of, he loved being on the field, getting close and getting different angles and always thinking about the end product, which he knew would get everybody excited at the end of the year.
Well,
he was a staple there.
And he did, and I'm telling you what, it's helped our Anderson history, because we got a lot of some of his footage that we have, in particular the one where he put the face mask over the over the camera, which was really cool. So we got that one.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to swimming, which you excelled at as well, and I mentioned some of the things that here. You're captain, of course. But Danny, 4-time All-American in swimming. No wonder he got out of study hall. But I mean, being 4-time All-American, placing in the state 14 different times. I mean, a lot of people be lucky, fortunate to get one time, and then setting all the, a bunch of school records, which I'm sure some of them probably still stand. I mean, it's incredible. And talk about your time swimming at Anderson, because I hate to be Debbie Downer, but there's not even a pool there now.
I'm on the old timers Facebook page for Anderson Barracudas.
Yeah, okay.
I just found out 3 days ago. That's unfortunate. I'll be honest. Like when I was in the 8th grade, if Anderson didn't have a swim team, I'm not sure I would have gone there.
Wow.
So
how about that?
Swimming was a big deal. A lot of kids, when I swam there, came from all over the city to swim there.
Yeah.
And people that were All-Americans way more times than me. They were All-Americans in multiple events, and some were finalists at Olympic trials. I swam with probably 3 or 4 people that swam at Stanford.
Wow.
My relay that trained there broke like 5 national records at nationals my senior year. So
really? Unbelievable.
That pool had serious talent coming there to train with Larry Lyons. So
Larry Lyons,
that guy was worshipped.
Yeah.
And still to this day, people talk about him.
Yeah.
So to have like Larry Lyons and Vince Siriano in my life, unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah. But
so,
go ahead.
So you guys, if I remember, I mean, did the swimming team, did they practice before and after school?
Yeah. We would practice 3 days a week at like 4:45 in the morning. Right. I think it was like somewhere around there. Yeah. And it was like an hour and a half practice. Then you go to class, and then you get out of class, and then you'd go swim for another 2.5 hours, and then you do what we call dry land exercises, or not. Back then it was novice training, so there was some strength, but we weren't trying to build body mass. It was more like lean endurance and muscle mass. So they were long days. Yeah. So builds a little bit of character.
Heck yeah. Hey, build some character for your parents when you didn't drive and they had to take you there at 4:45 in the morning.
Oh yeah. Well, I swam. Well, I was a freshman, and a lot of I had Chris Sinkovich picking me up all the time. He drove for me. So
is that right?
Ride. So you'd be honking in the front, and sometimes I'd oversleep. But so I'd be running out late.
That's funny.
That's hilarious. Wow. That's I mean, swimming, like going back, when we're 6-10 years older than you, but I mean, there was hardly anybody that had the accomplishments in swimming. They had Dave Wilson that had won state, but
He was actually an Olympian.
Exactly. You're right.
Silver medalist in Olympics.
Yeah. But I mean, there really wasn't, much else. And Larry Lyons comes in, I guess, and you benefited from that and had an unbelievable career.
Yeah, I think the big thing that helped Anderson was, and the same thing with like the swim clubs, like, you get kids into swimming when they're young and then make it fun, and then you get them involved in programs. Anderson was lucky enough to have a program like Anderson Barracudas, which was, at my time, there's 2 major programs. It was us and Pepsi Marlins.
Yeah.
And I think that drove a lot of kids into the sport that might not have normally done it. And Tim Morrison started that program and then turned it over to Larry Lyons, and they trained at Anderson, and a lot of those kids stuck with it because of the culture. Like Vince he built a culture that you just wanted to be a part of. And people saw success, they trained hard, and then each year they kept getting better and better and better, and that becomes addictive to a degree too. So
incredible.
It's incredible. In my you had Doug Wharton, that had I think finished pretty high at state.
Yeah.
You had people like Jerry Stevens. Chris was a hell of a swimmer. Doug Montanis was great. So a lot of good people came through there.
Were the Stringers around your age?
Yeah, Michael, they actually grew up down the street from me.
Yeah.
Our parents are very good friends, but Michael was a hell of a butterflyer.
Okay.
Actually, my senior year, he was the butterflyer on our relay. I can't remember where we finished. I think we finished second in the state.
And then Megan, his sister, twin sister, she ended up going to UC and swimming.
Yep.
Timmy's wife. There you go. Got to throw Timmy's.
My
sister-in-law. Got to throw her in there.
There you go.
That's right.
The Stringer plugs in here. I got it.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing too, I don't know if you know this, Jason, or not, but Timmy and Megan bought the Benassi's house.
Oh, really?
So they're living in
man, that's great. So carrying the tradition at that cul-de-sac.
That's exactly right.
Danny, what swim club team were you on?
Steve, I would drown. I jump in a pool and jump in and get me. But I was at the Summit Swim Club too. I mean, that was the big thing in Summit, obviously, was going to the Summit Swim Club. They had all those, not only that, but things to do at the, at the end of the summer, big parties and all that. And I just know that all the neighbors, everybody that belonged there, they all got along too as well, too. It was just a neat community. I remember riding my bike down 8 Mile with my Speedo on, my towel around my neck, and I didn't think there's anything wrong with it. On my way to the swim pool.
That's funny. So Jason, let's talk about. Obviously, as we've talked about football and swimming, the recruiting process for you, and I'm sure you got plenty of looks from both sports. And how did you ultimately decide with football?
I think my first goal is I wanted to try and get into a school that obviously gave me a great education, and Miami checked that box.
Yep.
The second thing was, I wanted to play for, somebody that inspired me, and Terry Hepner is the person that recruited me. And, he went on to take over Miami, and I had a great run in the late 90s, and then went on and turned Indiana's program around, and unfortunately passed away at a very young age.
Right.
But he was probably the number 2. You had the school, you had the great coach, and then I believed in what they were telling me in terms of opportunities to play and what they were trying to build there. And the players that I met there were incredible. Campus is obviously beautiful.
Yeah.
I to be honest, I wanted to go farther away. And there, but things worked out this way, and I wouldn't change anything. I did have a number of opportunities with swimming too.
Did you?
My passion was with football. That's what I loved. And I'm not sure. I think if I wasn't totally sold on the school, I wouldn't have just played football just to play Division I football. I think I would have had to been sold on the fact that I thought, I would have a great career there and maybe have hopes to do something afterward. In Miami, I thought gave that to me.
Yeah.
And then in swimming, I had opportunities to swim at multiple places. Clemson was probably my top choice. I'll tell you, like the Ohio State coach, when I told him I was playing football, oh man, he was pissed.
Is that right?
He was
Yeah.
so bad,
I
like
bet.
screaming at me.
Well, I mean, he's looking at your accomplishments and thinking,
The whole time I kept telling him, I was like, I think I'm going to play football. I think I'm going to play football. And then I was like, I'm playing football. And he's like, you strung me along this long. He was pretty upset. So
like they don't do that. Like,
when they get it from the other end. So
right.
yeah, but the recruiting process is tough. I mean, you're talking to multiple schools. You don't know who's interested and who's not, and you're getting all these phone calls. And fortunately, I had my dad to support me and walk me through it. And he talked to a lot of these coaches. He said, hey, if you're not serious, don't waste his time. He's got other people to talk to.
Yeah.
So he helped out a lot. My nephew, my wife, her sister is her son is Brogan Mackay, who is the quarterback at St. X. And he's playing he's going to end up going to Yale. But man, hearing how different it is today than when it was then. He had like 8 scholarships after his junior year. That wasn't happening unless you were a preseason All-American.
Right.
And he's amazing, and I'm so proud of him. And again, I think he made, like, when I'm talking about using your sport to do the right thing and get the best education possible, I'm so proud of him for the decision that he's making. I don't think there could be a better one.
Absolutely.
So let's go on from college. You went to Miami, and I want to talk about your family and how old your kids are, how many you have, but also talk about what your career path has been since your playing days.
My playing days, I was in the financial services business for about a year and a half out of school. And during that, I had this tick to try and get in the restaurant business. So I wrote Jeff Ruby a letter and said, like, hey, I'd like to talk to you and learn a little about the business. I knew he went to Cornell, and I thought at that point, I was like, maybe I should go back to grad school. And what am I going to study? Am I going to go into finance? Am I going to go into potentially hospitality? Like, why? I've never worked in a restaurant. I had no idea. I just knew that when my parents and I went out to dinner, it was an experience, and we felt good about it. And people seemed to enjoy taking care of people. And I always like getting out of the pool or getting done playing football and somebody saying, man, it was amazing to watch you swim, or it was great to watch you play football.
Right.
And I wanted to have a job. And when I got done taking care of somebody, they when they came up and thanked me, I'm like, I'm just having fun. So that's how I kind of got into it. And I worked for Jeff for 7 years after that letter. So he was very good to me, and I learned a lot, definitely set the base for me. And then I went on to open my own restaurant called Aqua, which I had in Mount Lookout for 3 years. That was what I call my MBA.
Okay.
So, it was very successful. Got voted the best restaurant in Cincinnati, or best new restaurant in Cincinnati when the first year was open. From the guest perspective, very successful. From the financial perspective, did well the first year, and then things got tough and ended up selling it. But all in all, I think was a great experience for me and got out alive. So then did a little bit of consulting and kind of spent a year and a half trying to figure out what I was going to do, and started with Weingartner and Hammonds, big hotel group out of Cincinnati. And for me, I had to kind of take a step back in my mind, but I thought that would push me forward, and worked for them for 5 years. And then the president of that company left and went to where I'm at now, and and then there was another guy that left. So one was Keith Dobb, which ironically enough was in Jeff Ruby's fraternity in college.
Is that right?
Small world. But so he took me and a few other people, and I've been here 7 years, and I at that point in time, I got to use my hotel experience and restaurant experience, and work for a hotel company that is really restaurant driven. So I run all the restaurants in F&B for the whole company. We have hotels all over the country. And the majority of the restaurants are restaurants that locals go to that just happen to be connected to a hotel. It's not your normal hotel restaurant. So I think the closest one I have to Cincinnati is Repeal, and it's in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a steakhouse right on Whiskey Row there, connected to a hotel called Hotel Distill. So
do you travel a lot?
Yeah, I'm traveling probably 3-4 days a week. Slowed down a little bit. It's got a little bit easier. I mean, we were like growing like crazy when I first started. My first 4 years, I was like, whoa. So, but we're now to the point where we're probably up in 2 to 4 hotels a year. Thing with that is most of the hotels have 2 to 3 restaurants in them. So I'm busy, but I got a great team. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And you know, I spent the first 2 years worrying like, am I going to make it? But it all worked out, and I'm still here. Yep. And I think the owner's pretty happy. So.
I'm sure. So tell us about your family.
So my wife's Katie, and she's comes from a Moeller family.
Okay.
So her brother was a quarterback from Moeller, led them to play in the state playoffs against St. Ignatius.
Wow.
And she comes from a family of 4 from over in the Amberley Moeller area. So we have 4 kids, Ryder, Asher. Ryder's 13, Asher's 10, Piper is 7, and Poppy is 5. So 2 girls, 2 boys.
Okay.
So we have a full house. The girls are just now starting to get into sports a little bit, playing soccer. They start gymnastics next week, and the boys are big time baseball players. Play for a program up here called Dunlin Flyers, and Ryder's a pitcher doing pretty well. And then Asher's 10 years old. Last year they finished, I think, top 5 in the state. Wow. So he's got a pretty lucky special team that he's on right now that I'm happy that that's worked out. You know, so 4 kids in Northwest Indiana, and you know, we're having fun.
Do you help coach any of those teams?
I coached for the first time this year. Asher started to play football. So I was all nervous because he's used to being like one of the better kids on the teams that he's on. But I was like, he also, you know, I was just worried he wasn't going to be cool with not being the best kid on the team. Not that he's the best kid on his baseball team, but he's more confident.
Okay.
And he's not a big kid either. He's like, I grew real early. He's doing like the opposite. He's muscular but good size, but I was just worried, man, is he going to be okay playing football? But I wanted to help, but I also travel 4 days a week. So it's a little bit hard, but I figured it out and was an assistant coach this year, and it ended up working out great. He played, started off at middle linebacker, and the kid can hit. And then they moved him to corner because we kept getting beat outside. And then played a little bit of running back towards the end of the year, and you know, got some reps there. So I think he'll get some more reps there next year.
Kind of sounds familiar, the cornerback running back situation going on there.
Yeah. Wow,
So
good stuff.
Let's get into something that, you know, kind of piqued my, like, kind of lit a fire in my butt to get a hold of you, was the Buddy LaRosa's Hall of Fame thing that presented itself.
Yes.
That's a really, like Steve said, it's an unbelievable, cool honor. And just talk a little bit about that, how you found out, and then just when is all that happening?
Oh, well, I was at the office, and I saw a missed call from Cincinnati, and I was like, oh, okay. So I picked it up, listened to the voicemail, and it was Mike LaRosa. And it's like, oh man, he didn't say what he was calling for. So I didn't know what he was calling for. I just could be calling about the, you know, maybe he wants to give me a job. I don't know. But so I call him back, and I had spoken to him before, obviously, when I got the got the opportunity to meet him when I got the Buddy LaRosa Athlete of the Year, and he had come into the restaurants every once in a while and things like that. But he called and told me that, apologized that it took this long, but that I was going to be a part of the Buddy LaRosa Hall of Fame. So I was pretty floored. I mean, I'm still amazed I'm even on this call right now talking about high school sports. So to be able to have him call me and have me be a part of something like that, I have a number of people that I swam with, believe it or not, that are already in that Hall of Fame, and to know the things that they have accomplished. And then I went back and read what people have accomplished there. I was like, I almost don't feel worthy. But
yeah, you're worthy,
no. So it's
Well deserved.
It's awesome. So the coolest thing about it for me is that my kids are old enough to be able to go to the ceremony, which I don't have a date for it, but I think it's at the end of June next year, and we'll be able to sit through there and be a part of it. So, and they'll be able to remember
really cool.
it. So that's the coolest part.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have to please make sure when you get in town to give us a ring. We'd like to, maybe have a drink with you or something. Maybe you could take us to one of those fine restaurants in Cincinnati. We'll have a drink somewhere.
For sure. Yeah, I plan on spending a little time there when we come down. So
awesome.
That'll be great. So let's talk about, obviously Steve and I are still in Cincinnati, live in Anderson Township, and it's all, and obviously this is kind of why we do this show too, is Anderson's a special place. Why do you feel like it was such a special place growing up and athletic wise for you?
I think it's the people. I think you have a community of like-minded people, no matter where you came from. My whole experience is through that. All I can remember, at least, is just no matter whether it be school, I had great teachers, whether it be Summit, whether it be Anderson. I still have some of them that are Facebook friends with me or and shoot me messages like Bob Williams would be one of them.
Yeah.
And then just growing up, like in the neighborhood I grew up, I mean, couldn't ask for better neighbors. I'm experiencing a little bit of that here and where we live now, but and then just the sports, understanding the commitment that my parents made. I'm learning a little bit about that, like getting people to where they need to be and how often. I got 2 kids in travel baseball, so it's a little bit hard to deal to keep up with.
Sure.
But all the opportunities that Anderson provides a family, no matter what your choices are, whether it's athletics or whether it's music or community, and it's a safe place. I still have plenty of friends I keep in touch with today, and even the ones that I don't, I wish I did. And I see them all doing great things, and I think that's what makes it special.
Absolutely, totally agree, and I think that's kind of why Steve and I have stuck around for so long and built our friendship over the years. And so we're going to try to wrap this up real quick, but I thought kind of gave you a little bit of a warning. I was going to throw this last question out to you. So, we always ask everybody what their favorite high school memory was, favorite college, and then you've already kind of mentioned some of your coaches. So maybe you can some teachers too, if you want. So maybe give us your favorite high school memory.
Favorite high school memory, I've got 2 that are pretty close to being tied. One was what I think everybody would expect would be that win against Princeton. I don't think there's a better feeling that anybody could have. I think every kid on the team can look at that video and know that they all contributed and we're all a part of everybody running on that field.
Absolutely.
And it was hard fought game in the cold, and we show up with no sleeves on, and so it's a memory that and everybody thought we'd lose, so that's even better. So and that as a memory I'll always remember. And then the other one would be winning the state championship in swimming. I actually going into my senior year, I kind of thought I'd walk away with it, to be honest. And I actually won by, I think, 2 100ths of a second.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't get in the water until December of my senior year because of football, and had a bruised sternum and had to fight through some things. And, I thought it'd all be fine. But, I know that in the end, my arms were burning because I'm not in the best shape. And I fought through it and pulled it off. And, that's a race I'll never forget. So
incredible.
What about you have a college memory, favorite college memory?
Favorite college memories? I would have, one game that, I didn't contribute that much to the game other than special teams, but the game that we played Northwestern and beat them when they won the Big Ten was.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Nice to be that was the first my first experience of college football of really like,
Big time.
pulling things together and beating somebody that, we knew we'd beat Princeton, I think, but a lot of people didn't expect we'd beat Princeton. I'm not sure we knew we'd beat Northwestern, but we did. And then, my biggest moments was probably getting my first interception as a sophomore when I got a shot to play against Kent and was playing nickelback, and I was just a little bit behind, and I turned in a second, the ball was there, I got it, and got a little 20-yard run, and then
Yes.
the last piece would be I broke my hand the last day of 2 days, and I thought, and I was starting, and I thought like, oh, this is it. After all these years, it's like, I'm starting, I broke my hand, I'm going to lose it, because it's so close when you're
Right.
playing at that level. And then, pulling through and playing, that season with a broken hand and still being able to contribute to the team. Still got a couple interceptions. Those are moments that I'll remember. And I've carried all those things in life and business when things don't go your way.
Right.
You learn how to persevere. So
That's great
Incredible.
stories. And so just real quick, you've named the coaches. Any favorite teachers out there?
Well, Bob keeps in touch with me. He's an English teacher that I loved. I think he actually was involved with swimming too, and was a big fan. And it amazes me that he shoots out to me every once in a while on Facebook. So love him.
That is great. Yeah, some great memories, great stories, and we're sorry that it took so long to get to you, because we made a list, and we had you on there. We're just trying to figure out how to get a hold of you and all that, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no, it's all good, and I'm happy to be here, and appreciate the time.
That's so awesome. So Steve, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So for Steve Ellis, Jason Druso, Dan Evers, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you next week.